I'm Kathryn Zox, your social worker with a microphone, and you're listening to The Kathryn Zox Show. And joining me today is April Dávila. Her new book is Sit Right Here, and the write is WRITE, 6 mindfulness practices to help you write more and suffer less. Struggling with writer's block, award-winning author April Dávila offers a practical, mindful approach to getting unstuck. Drawing on insight meditation, personal experience, and her expertise as both a writer and mindfulness teacher, she shows how mindfulness can help overcome common creative obstacles like writer's block, self-doubt, and distraction through practical exercises grounded in neuroscience. She is a certified mindfulness meditation instructor through the Greater Good Science Center at the University of California, Berkeley. And she has also won the 2021 WILLA Award for Women Writing the West. Welcome to the show. Nice to have you on, April.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, so we're talking about specifically writing and writer's block, but I think as I am reading this, self-doubt, distraction, those are things that affect all of us, not just, we don't necessarily have to be writers. It can be anything that gets in the way of our professional work, our relationships, I assume, all of those connections that we have every day in our lives.
Absolutely. And it's actually one of the fun things about working with my clients is that most of them don't have any experience with mindfulness. And then when they just want to have an easier time writing, but as they start to incorporate mindfulness into their regular routine, they start to see improvements at work, improvements in their family relationships. And it's kind of like a side effect, but I just kind of I just kind of smile and be like, yep, that's going to happen. When we integrate, just being more aware of what our minds are doing serves us across all endeavors, especially in our creative work, but in all areas.
All right, so let's start with the writing, specifically, and then we can go on to next. But yeah, so how do you do it? I mean, self-doubt, no distraction.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
all of it.
All of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the number one thing that I like to share with anybody who's trying to do anything creative, because self-doubt will creep in, is this very simple practice of insight meditation. And, I don't change. The meditation is very traditional. We simply sit still for a few minutes and try to notice where our thoughts go. There's nothing woo or fancy or, you don't need any incense or chanting. No, if you're into that thing, that's cool. But basically we just sit, we try to notice where our minds are going. And then when you turn to your writing or whatever creative work you're doing, you will notice the thoughts that arise more effectively. So you start typing and then you have the thought like, oh, I should go empty the dishwasher. And then because you're in a slightly more mindful state, you say, nope, that's just my mind trying to avoid something that is challenging. Or you might notice a little internal voice saying like, oh, that sentence wasn't very good. You should delete that before anyone sees it. But instead of deleting, you can just recognize that as just another thought. You let it go. You come back to the writing and you keep going. And this one simple practice has let me get first drafts done. And my clients too, I see it with everybody who implements this. You get your first draft done so much faster because you can just recognize that doubt. You can recognize that little voice that wants to shut you down before you've even started. Excuse it, tell it to go sit in the corner for a minute and finish the draft. And then when you come back to edit, that's when you let that inner critic go to town and say, okay, what's working, what's not? Now it's time to be critical. But when you're first starting, that critical voice just shuts you down without you even realizing it.
So are you rewiring your brain? Is that what you're doing? I mean, I know you're a neuroscience, you're a scientist and you're also a Buddhist, combining the two, right?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's more apt to say that you're creating new connections. So I guess, and rewiring is kind of more of a pop culture way of saying, but sure, yes, you are teaching yourself new ways of thinking about things and allowing yourself just a moment of pause when a thought arises to question it and be like, okay, is it true? And if it is true, okay, then you act accordingly. And if it's not, you can just let it go and get back to what you're doing.
Right, give us an example, say in our, everyday life, for instance, there are so many distractions. I mean,
yes,
constant, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I have to check my email. Maybe I should do that before I begin writing, or before I start doing this, or during it, or I forgot
Yeah.
to, on and on, right? Okay, so let's talk
Yeah.
about that.
So I would say probably the two biggest distractions I hear are social media and email. And so one of the things I always recommend is setting aside a specific amount of time. So I always tell people to stop looking for time and make time, because when you're looking for time to write, you're actually just putting it at the bottom of your to-do list, and you never get to the bottom of your to-do list. So if you're serious about making some time for yourself, you have to make that time on your calendar. And I find that setting aside 1 hour is the perfect amount. Like, it's not enough time that you really feel like you're avoiding your life, but it's enough time to get some real work done. And then you start with a 10-minute meditation. And then you have to set yourself up for success by actually like turning over the phone, put it on silent, put it on before you start the meditation, close out any social media that's on your computer, open the project that you're going to be working on, so that you do the meditation to allow yourself to get focused. You turn your attention towards the writing. And that does not mean that you won't have the thoughts, right? As soon as you start writing is difficult, and your brain's sole job is to protect you. Its number one prime directive is like, let's keep things simple. We don't want to waste energy. And so when you try to do something that your brain perceives as difficult, it will immediately throw other things at you that are easier. So the thought will come up, oh, you should check your email. There's supposed to be that one person's getting back to you. And if you can recognize that thought and say, nope, I'm taking 1 hour to do something that's really important to me, let that thought go. And no, that email will wait for you. It will be there. And same with social media. You will have the thought. Your brain will say, and this is not a conscious thought, but the brain does the work of saying, like, writing is difficult, social media is easy. Oh, we should just do one quick scroll. Oh, I just want to see what so-and-so's up to. And if you don't recognize that thought, before you know it, you're picking up your phone, you're scrolling, and not writing. But if you can recognize the thought and say, nope, not right now, I'm giving myself 1 hour, and then just do the work, it is amazing what you can accomplish when you start to just recognize that those distractions are not a fault. It is your brain doing exactly what your brain is supposed to do, which is protect you and make life easier. But writing is challenging. And if you want to get any writing done, you have to be willing to engage in that.
Well, April, should you actually could hide your devices? I mean, go in another room, put your phone at the other end of the house or upstairs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So,
I say do whatever you got to do to carve out that hour. You can hand your phone to like a spouse or a friend and be like, please don't let me have it for an hour. Yes.
yeah. So kind of go into, I don't want to say seclusion or hiding, or in a room that all this stuff isn't there, right? So it's not,
Yeah,
even if it is tempting. So that's practical, right? To be able to do
exactly.
that. Yeah.
And for 1 hour, it's not that long. You can do it.
Yeah. Okay. So that seems easy, simple. What keeps us from doing that though? Why is it so difficult?
Again, it's your brain. And we have hundreds of thousands of years of evolution of our brain trying to keep things simple. There's another level to this too, wherein, like, historically, say way back before, when we were living in clans or tribes before modern society, social embarrassment, or if you were called out for something, it wasn't just embarrassing, it was actually potentially lethal, right? If you were excluded from the tribe, you might not make it through winter. And so when you put thoughts on the page, you are actually doing something that makes you very vulnerable. It puts unrefined ideas into a place where someone else might see them. And your brain, again, recognizes that as a threat. And its job is to keep you safe. It has done it really, this human brain has evolved over a very long time, and it's gotten very good at keeping us safe. And so when you start to do this thing that it perceives as potentially dangerous, excuse me, it will, again, throw things at you that are not dangerous. It'll say, let's go unload the dishwasher. Let's check social media. And I really like to emphasize that this doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you or your brain. It actually means that everything's working like it's supposed to. You're just choosing to do something that's challenging. And when you can recognize that and be like, okay, brain, I know this is hard, but we're going to push through it because there's a value. There is a deep value in actually putting stories on the page. As a society, it's our way of stories are our way of building connection, empathy. Writing is an absolutely worthwhile task, but it is challenging. And your brain doesn't like that. Your brain's going to steer you towards something that's easier.
Right. So this is the evolution of our brain, hopefully. What
Yes.
about self-doubt? Because I know self-doubt writers, actors, anybody in the creative field, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
huge topic, right? Self-doubt, because you associate your work with who you are. You have to separate the
Yeah.
two. You're not your book that may have failed. You are,
Exactly.
and the same with actors. So that's something I think that is a difficult challenge for in the creative field anyway.
Absolutely. The rejection piece is really hard. And I devote a whole chapter to this in the book because if you're a writer, if you're any kind of creative, rejection is going to be part of the process. It just is, especially for writers. We get a lot of rejections. And we've all heard like, oh, you need to have a thick skin and all of it. And we know that. But rejections still hurt because we identify too closely with it. And when we can step back and say, okay, I was not rejected, the writing was. And the thing that makes the rejection so powerful is that there's a little nagging voice in the back of your head that's saying, what if I'm not good enough? And that's the part that rejection pokes at. And I always like to tell my writers that that's actually the one thing you have control over. If you get rejected, or if your story, I always like to catch myself, you were not rejected, the story was. If your story is rejected and you're worried that your writing isn't up to snuff, that's actually the one thing you can do something about. You can take a class, you can read a book, you can study craft books, you can go on YouTube and watch tutorials. You can actually work on becoming a better writer, whatever better writer means to you, right? We all have different styles. But if that's the concern, then lean into that, work on your craft. If it's really what is more often the case is that your story was too long or too short or too funny or not funny enough, or, there's any piece of creative work, there's always going to be someone who doesn't like it. You can go to Goodreads and look up your favorite book and there will be 1-star reviews. There are always 1-star reviews. You're never going to please everybody.
When should you stop writing? Is there a point at which perhaps you do get too many rejections from a wide range of critics? Should one be aware of maybe it's time to stop writing?
Oh, I am firmly in the never say die camp.
Okay.
I had a teacher once say there are two kinds of writers, those who get published and those who quit. And I like that because I feel like if you are committed to your craft and you are committed to improving, and I will say you are not going to improve in a vacuum. This whole, that 10,000 hours thing that everyone was talking about for a long time, if you do anything for 10,000 hours, you'll be an expert at it. And yes, but if you practice doing something badly for 10,000 hours, you just get better at doing it badly. You need input, you need feedback, you need coaches, you need community. And if you are truly committed to improving your craft, never give up. Keep writing and keep submitting. And I will say too, I've often heard writers say, well, I sent my story out and it got rejected. I'm like, you sent it to one journal? One? I mean, the writers who get published, they said, I have one of the women in our writing community, she's never written something that hasn't been published because when she finishes it, she sends it to the journal at the top of her list. If it's rejected, she sends it to the next one, and then she sends it to the next one. And meanwhile, she's writing the next story. She always has stories on submission, and sooner or later, somebody picks it up and they publish it. It really is persistence more than anything when it comes to the publishing game, not necessarily writing.
Yeah. Has the publishing game changed since, well, let's say since AI, since
Oh my
social
gosh.
media? Yeah. How
Oh
has
my
it
God.
changed?
Like
Yeah.
it's like where to start, right? How much time do
Okay.
you
Yeah.
have? The publishing itself is Wild West and has been for a while because of the rise of self-publishing and hybrid publishing. And then you throw AI into the mix a few years ago. And now there are a lot of writers who are kind of slapping together 80,000 words with AI, calling it a novel, and even publishing those. There was something like 1 million self-published books on Amazon last year, 1 million. And it's jumped dramatically since AI came onto the scene. 5 years ago, I think it was like 200,000, 300,000 books a year were being published on Amazon. So my gut, I don't have any data to back this up, but it seems like it's not too big a leap to say that the rise in AI has brought a lot of people to quote unquote write. Excuse me, I'm just getting over his cold. to write books and just slap them together. They don't get any editing. They don't get any feedback. They're just like, I wrote a book, but they didn't really. And AI plagiarizes. That's the biggest problem. It pulls work from other people's writing. And I'll say too, the writers that I've worked with who try to use AI for a first draft, it ends up being more work because you're basically trying to, once it's written, you have to go back and write the equivalent of like a fifth grade paper with that kind of grammar and thoughtful, and it's not your ideas at all. And it's so much harder than it is to just write the first draft yourself and
Well, if
leave
you
AI
write the
out
first
of it.
draft yourself, can you use AI as like somebody as a not the last word literally, but as someone as if it were another mentor or just another colleague who was helping you or critiquing you, and then you can question AI.
Yeah.
Isn't it the way you use it that's
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm all for AI as a tool, as a writing tool. I like if I'm writing a shorter piece, I might drop it in there and say, what am I missing? What angle do I need to bring into this? It's not in a point yet where it can be thoughtful about a longer piece like a novel. It's just too much, and it doesn't understand the finer nuances and themes and human experience that make a novel feel good. It's really good for grammar and whatnot, like AI, and Grammarly is AI. I'm all for support with grammar and spelling, but when it comes to feedback on a larger piece like a novel, I have yet to see it do anything close to what a human brain can do.
So you're saying it's probably better, or you can use it, it's for nonfiction, for instance.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I was writing an essay that's coming out in LitHub in a couple weeks, and I threw the essay into AI and I'm like, okay, what am I missing? What's the biggest critique I might hear on this, so that I can kind of preempt what people might say about the piece and address those criticisms ahead of time. But that's like, an 800 word piece, not an 85,000 word novel.
Now, you have experience that, again, all your experiences obviously come to play when you are writing a novel, right? And you've had,
Exactly.
yeah, because you are a fourth generation California, and you lived not all around the world, but in some very significant places, Ecuador, the Caribbean, the Marshall Islands. Okay, how's that affected your work?
I think it's one of the best things about being a writer is that everything you do is material. Everything in your entire life gets filtered through your brain and into the story that you're telling, and it influences it. And that's precisely what makes the human brain special when it comes to storytelling. And there's no way AI can do that. I have a unique perspective on the world from my experiences. And if you were writing the same story I'm writing, you would bring a totally different perspective to it. And that's what makes it uniquely yours or mine or whoever is writing it. And so taking in other people's art and allowing it to inspire and influence and guide us in the way that we create our own. I really see writing as being part of a larger conversation in the culture. When we write a story, we become a voice in that conversation, and we are just one of many, and we all influence each other.
Do you belong to a writers group? I mean, is that, yeah.
Yeah, well, I actually have, it's a writing community. We meet every day of the week at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, and we meditate for 15 minutes, and then we write for an hour. And the nice thing about it is that there's no pressure to produce. Like, we have some people who just come and journal because that's what they want to do. We have people who are working on their third or fourth novels. We have screenplay writers, poets, essayists. Like, it's just a wonderful group of people. And it is open to whoever would like to come join. You can look us up.
So in other words, this is a support group for writers.
Basically, yes. Yes.
And they are from around the world. I mean, from around the world, global.
Yeah, we have had people come in from Australia, England, Norway for a while. It definitely is more focused on the United States, but we've had people from all over the world. Yeah.
April, how do you critique fellow writers without them viewing you being competitive, or, well, let's start with that, as rather than supportive?
Oh, I just competitive doesn't really come into it for me. Every story is unique, and even with like other writing coaches, I feel like every writer they need to find the coach that they really click with. And if it's not me, it's there are plenty of other coaches. And so I have focused my entire career at this point on a really collaborative attitude of like, if I'm the right fit, great. If not, like I have colleagues I can refer you to, and then I have those colleagues refer people to me. And in terms of the actual critique, my aim is always to make the book closer to the author's vision for it. You know, when I'm critiquing, I'm not trying to make it how I would write it, because I'm not writing it. I want to have in mind the author's vision for the novel, for the story, and then help guide them to land the book so that it says what they want it to say in the way that they want to say it.
And is this a group of the group that you belong to? Is this all female or male or a combination?
I will say it skews female. I'm not exactly sure why. We do have some men in the group, but it's open to.
Just lost you.
Oh,
I think I just lost you.
hold on a second.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened there.
Is-
What was the last thing you heard?
I asked you if it what you said. I asked you, I guess,
It's-
whether the group was male, female, and you said it skewed toward females for whatever reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we do have men in the group, but it is more weighted towards women. Yeah.
Which is interesting because it would seem to me, and maybe this is kind of my own prejudice, that women would be more willing to share their work and get away from and this may not be true, but the competitive nature that sometimes I think, well, I'm going to say male authors get into.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when you lead a group that is dedicated to mindfulness and writing, it attracts a certain kind of person, and they tend to be pretty chill and very nice people. So it's a lovely community.
Buddhism. I just mentioned the fact that you neuroscience and Buddhism and you combine the two. So what about Buddhism? Because people I don't think have a real understanding of what Buddhism is about and the
Yeah.
effect. Yeah. And the effect that it has on your work, particularly your writing. I mean, mindfulness, yes, but how did you get into the Buddhist philosophy in the first place?
So when I started meditating, I had no idea how much it was going to affect my writing. I was interested in it because of the Buddhist philosophy, and the more I learned about it, and the more I studied, the more I really I found a lot of wisdom in Buddhist philosophy. And it wasn't until years of having been a meditator that I looked back and saw that it had affected me as a writer. And that was when I started writing essays about it that eventually became the book. But I mean, there's so much, again, so much to unpack when it comes to Buddhism in general. I tend to keep things really secular in terms of my coaching, but I am a practicing Buddhist. I have studied the philosophy, and I do love to talk about the Buddhist aspects of my practice. I don't get as much opportunity as I might like.
Well, okay, so this is tell us about it because the impact it has on your practice.
Yeah, so there's the idea with Buddhism that most attracted me in the beginning was this idea of come see for yourself, right? There are teachings, there's philosophy, and it always comes back down to come see for yourself. And so as you're studying that, I have found that to be so helpful. And then when you bring in the meditation component of it and you start to become aware of your own mind, and yes, the writing, we talked about that, but also just noticing the way, like if I'm having a conversation with my husband and it turns heated and I find I'm angry, but I can pause and be like, wait, I'm angry. Why am I angry? And just have that moment of like, what's going on in my head and in my body right now? And give myself the permission to take that time, which really ends up being a second, maybe 2 seconds of what's going on here, really. What's really true in this moment. And then I can usually be like, oh, I'm upset because XYZ. And then I can say that. And instead of having a big fight with my husband, he can say, oh, yeah, I can see how you would feel that way. and then let's be a team. Like, let's figure this out together versus, have a screaming fight and have to cry all night. And I
I
don't know,
could have
like it
used
just,
you last night when my partner, he and I were going at it.
it's so easy to
Yeah,
do. And so
very easy.
yeah, yeah, I think it's just so many ways that Buddhism has influenced my life. Yeah.
Yeah. And influenced your family too, as it sounds
Yeah.
like anyway. And the kid, what, you have two kids, two
I do
children?
have two kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. 18 or almost 19 and 15. Yeah.
We have 2 minutes left. So
Yeah.
give us websites, other platforms, whatever, to go to for more information about your work and about your book.
Absolutely. So the book, you can just go to sitrighthere.com, and it's right with a W, but if you type it in wrong, you'll land in the same place, so don't worry about it. And then I am pretty much the only April Dávila out there. So if you type in April Dávila, it's Davila. You'll find me. I'm very easy to find.
Okay, April Dávila, and we've been having a great conversation talking about her book, Sit Right, and I'm going to spell it again, though, but WRITE here. 6 mindful practices to help you write more and suffer less. Thanks so much for being on the show this morning. Great having you. We
Thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Yeah. I'm Kathryn Zox, your social worker with a microphone, and you're listening to The Kathryn Zox Show. And joining me this morning is Dr. Sherry McAllister. She's a chiropractor, and we're going to be talking about best summer, beat summer travel pain. We've all been there. You finally arrive at your vacation destination, but instead of heading straight to the beach, you're searching for ibuprofen. And I'm putting this in quotes, the economy class origami of cramped airplane seats and the highway hip that comes from hours in the car, many travelers arrive stiff, sore, and ready for relief instead of relaxation. Dr. Sherry McAllister shares practical tips to help prevent travel-related aches before they start. And she explains the ideal seat angle to protect your lumbar spine during long trips. And this is interesting, why looking down at your phone can strain your neck and back, and gives us simple strategies to keep your body feeling its best. Dr. McAllister is president of the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress, an award-winning nonprofit dedicated to advancing awareness of the benefits of chiropractic care through research and education. Welcome to the show, Dr. Sherry McAllister.
Well, good morning, and thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. I want to start, and I do have to ask the question, why do chiropractors, or why maybe traditionally, they've gotten a bad rap?
Oh, it's a beautiful question. And it does start with a fundamental paradigm shift many years ago, actually. And it was where chiropractors thought prevention and optimization of the human frame is where really healthcare should be. And the American Medical Association thought we should be having more of an idealism of a pill for every ill. And that's kind of where the chasm starts. And you can find so much more on that on Contain and Eliminate, which is part of the first chapter of the Adjusted Reality book.
And that's all right, well, let's start with your book, because Adjusted Reality book. I know you also have a podcast, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. So Adjusted Reality podcast actually goes through the entire Contain and Eliminate. And it's kind of an interesting, you ask a really loaded question. It's a beautiful question because so many people don't understand that in the 1980s, there was a concerted effort to really do away with chiropractic. It started in the 1960s, and they didn't see the principles and the philosophy that went along with chiropractic care, which fundamentally comes down to how the nervous system responds and how the body adapts. And so you go into a lot of, when you get a bad rap, it's kind of like, I liken it to when you buy glassware and you try to take that sticker off and there's adhesive behind it and it just gets smeared all over. Once someone notes a negative, which was very untrue, we got, unfortunately, discriminated against by the American Medical Association in the 60s. And that sticky residue never really came off. And my goal now is to really enlighten people on how we got that sticky residue, because it was really unfair and a false precedence to who and what the chiropractic profession stands for. And now millions of people are starting to see that, it makes sense. We should be preventing and optimizing our health before we get to chasing symptoms and taking another pill for another ill.
Yeah, and that's getting a lot of criticism, I guess, from the general public. Anytime you see an MD and whatever the symptoms are, there's a pill for it, and that's it. They give you, and you go home and take your pill. So now that really is sort of up for a lot of criticism in terms of practicing medicine.
Yes. In fact, we weren't practicing medicine. We were looking at the structure and the function of the human frame and how the body moves and adapts to that, using the nervous system as the primary care piece for how the body will be able to adapt and be more resilient. And the beautiful part was, because we weren't chasing a symptom, we were trying to optimize the human frame, and we didn't give pills. We were not practicing medicine without a license, and 687 chiropractors went to jail for practicing medicine without a license. So I give homage to them, because without them being strong and sturdy and capable and really built on their foundation, that we're really trying to help the body move with greater resilience, that we as chiropractors would not be here today. So, grateful they were even adjusting, Kathryn, while they
Yeah.
were in jail. They're
Yeah.
the inmates and the guards would come over and get adjusted while these chiropractors were in jail. So you have to smile because we're still here. We're stronger than ever. We're growing faster than ever. And I think it's one of those moments where we reflect on, what does it look like to really have whole being care? Because that's a big question that people are like, what does that even mean?
Actually, that was my next question. What does it mean to
Yeah,
care for the
you and
whole?
I are
Yeah, what, yeah.
synergistic right now. So whole-being care really looks at, we cannot segment a part. We're not a walking heart and we're not a walking kidney. What we really need to look at is the human frame as a whole. So the whole being, that's mental, physical, emotional, and societal. We need to be able to look at a human as one complete entity and be able to really look at where those optimization points are. How do I hear you come in and you're stressed at work, your back hurts, you've been taking 3 Tylenol in the morning and at night, and you're lifting, bending, twisting, pushing, and pulling at work. And now I got to look at you and go, well, your back hurts. Here, I'll give you an ibuprofen instead of a Tylenol. That's not the way you look at a person. We have to really unpack all of these pieces so that we then can treat you as a whole and not the segment of, oh, you have low back pain. Well, let's treat that. Because that's where the system starts to break down.
So you're looking at the patient in the context of where they work, what they're doing at home, all of that, right? Their whole gestalt. I mean, in therapy, we call it the whole gestalt, um, looking at the whole person, not just the individual. You're looking at the whole family and how the person is connected to the family. And this is the same. I'm assuming this is very similar in terms of being able to do that. How long does it take when you're looking, say, for a patient, when a new patient comes in, how much time do you spend with them? That takes a lot of time.
It, well, that depends. And, the beauty of, as I was practicing, I'll just give you a 30-year rendition of where I was. I loved when the patient came in when they were 2 years old or even younger, because I started there. This is family care, and I wanna know, how was the birth? Was it traumatic? Was there forceps used? Did the baby have problems latching on and breastfeeding? So it depends on where I get you. If you come in and you're 85 years old, I got a lot of history to cover,
Yeah.
but the majority of chiropractors will spend time with the person to make it personalized historical account of what happened, when it happened, and also, just like you said, you got to look at the family, right? You're looking at it from your professional lens, and from a chiropractic lens, it's, what kind of car accidents were you in? Is there some type of genetic inherited disease that has been in your life? What kind of stress are you under? So it does take time, but it's time that is a valuable investment. And that's what I think I want your listeners to hear is, you are the greatest investment if you take care of the greatest gift you have, which is your health. That should be the bottom baseline foundation, is that you're so important to the people around you and your job that you should be able to lift up and see how beautiful your body is. And yes, we all have our dips and our falls and, cute injury, and but what we want to prevent is the problems that lifestyle brings at us, which comes to a lot of the things that we can prevent, like, lifting, for example, luggage that's way too heavy and that kind of thing. I think, Kathryn, that's where we really need to start.
Yeah. So, and I think that when you have that kind of initial visit, let's say with you, I think one perhaps is not even aware of the things that they are doing necessarily that are impacting their health in a negative way. You may be lifting, a 20-pound baby, carrying them around the house all day, or, I can think of a lot of different scenarios, right? Um, I mean, that would be one. But I started the conversation with, because this is a practical way, that you're taking a trip, flying, everybody's flying, millions of people, or in those cramped seats on the airplane. So what do we do? I mean, how do we, you've been sitting in an airplane for 5 hours, and that's not necessarily a good place to be for 5 hours just sitting there. So you have some tips, I guess, for us, how to navigate that kind of an environment?
Well, you're spot on. There's something that I wanted to break down is you talked about carrying a 20-pound toddler, and you're right. If you don't know better, it's very difficult to do better. But here's the one thing that I want for people to hear is when you know better, then you can choose to do better. And as we're coming up to a very beautiful long weekend, and many of you will be traveling, I like to take in some of the greats like Abraham Lincoln. The best way to predict the future is, in fact, to create it. And to create that, as you're getting on the airplane, you get to choose if your airplane ride is going to be positive or negative. It's a choice. And some of the things that actually happen when you sit down become a problem because you chose not to pay attention to your body. So let's start with just walking in. The first thing you do is you find your spot. Now you're going to pick up your luggage. So many people I watch are doing the lift and they're twisting. That's a fundamental, really encouraging way to hurt your low back. Okay.
Can I tell you what I do? I find the 25-year-old young man who's sitting next to me or close by and ask him to put my luggage up in the rack. But
I
anyway,
absolutely applaud you for that. I think that is the number one thing. If there's any reason why you should not be lifting, bending, pushing, or pulling, then ask for help. That's what people around you. And I am like you, is if there's a moment where I can get some help, ask for it. Don't be ashamed of it. So many people are around you. And the men that are fit and wanting to help, they
yeah,
feel good about it. So it's good
yeah,
karma.
yeah, that's true. It's good for both people, right? Exactly. But now when you get, okay, so you get in your seat and you're going to be doing, and you're going to talk about some of the things you can do to be more comfortable, and you're doing these, I'm calling them exercises. I'm not sure that's really the right movements, whatever.
Movement
And
is
you
great.
say they're discrete, but if you're sitting down, like you're in the middle seat, for instance, the worst middle seat. I was once in the middle seat in the last row of the plane. This was not a good place to be. But, and you're kind of, you say discreetly, doing your movements. What's the person next to you going to, is there something wrong with that? You have people watching you. You're not in your own home. So, do they think that you are crazy, or do you have to explain yourself, or how does that work?
I never explain myself, but I will tell you, I have been waiting for an airplane and started doing my leg stretches, and I've had people start stretching around me. So let's say this is contagious goodness. Okay.
Okay.
If you start doing something good for yourself, maybe others will feel more capable or willing to participate. So as soon as you sit down, I want you to think of the acronym SITS, SITS. The first one is shoulder shrugs. You just came off wherever you've been. It could be very stressful. You could have been lifting. You could just the anxiety that happens when you get on a plane. So just bring your shoulders to your ears and just hold it for a couple seconds and then relax. And do that a couple times while you're deep breathing, because that's the first way to get rid of the stress that was outside the airplane. So now you're going to get yourself adjusted in the seat. Second one, we call it the incline stretch because you're really taking your ear to your shoulder. So left ear to left shoulder, and it's an incline on the right hand side. If you can imagine, it's kind of like walking up a mountain. And you're just holding your ear to your shoulder for about 3 seconds, and then you do the other side. These are very benign moves. Like you're really not going to be knocking your aisle mate or your window mate into submission here. It's very subtle, but it really makes a difference. So that's the I, the incline stretch. Now the T,
I'm going to
twist.
stop you just because I want to know, what about people who may have, you know, they may, because we want to say this. I mean, if they've had surgery on their shoulder, or there are different, different people are in different s- stages of health, of being healthy, I guess is the word. But, do they not do this? This is not, you have to be sure that you can do this,
100%.
right? Yeah.
First and foremost, you always protect knowing the personalized care that you're under. So if you've had a shoulder injury, for sure you should be asking for help to lift that luggage. And then you want to just do gentle movements. You don't want to stop doing the movement, because when you stop doing a movement, that means that the body is going to continue to protect and tighten. So ask the provider that you're under, the care provider, can I do my ear to shoulder stretches? Can I do my shoulder shrugs? And usually the answer will be yes, but just do it within tolerance. And I very much appreciate that you brought that to the attention of everyone listening. Is everything that is good for one is not good for all, and
Yeah.
that's a big piece. So we reflect on what we can do and what our limitations are, and obviously the climate that your body has been through. The next one that I'm going to recommend is the T. So we've gone through the shoulder shrugs, the S, the I, the incline, and then the T for the twist. So this is really twisting your upper body towards the aisle, and then you're holding it there for about 2 seconds, and then you're twisting it towards the window. And why twisting, Dr. McAllister, is because one of the keys is it improves your digestion. And we all know when we sit for long periods of time, our digestion starts to slow. So we want to keep that moving. It also increases circulation, which is a beautiful thing when you're on an airplane. But that last T or S is to get up. When it's safe to move about the cabin, if you can find yourself doing a couple of steps, maybe towards the bathroom or coming back down the aisle, those are really helpful for your body to keep moving, because when a body is not in motion, it tends to start to tighten. And what we really want when you get off the plane is that you're ready for vacation. That's the key. So that whole SITS program, shoulder shrugs, incline stretch, twist, and then steps, makes you ready for a fabulous vacation.
And we touched on this just a little bit, but this luggage ergonomics, not taking your trying to hoist it up onto the rack on the plane. But there's other parts to that too. And I notice so many people, because I do travel a lot, and I see, the backpacks, the heavy jackets, the suitcases. I mean, it seems to me I'm not sure why people have to bring so much stuff, but that's another show. But they're lugging not just on the plane when they get off the plane, when they're having to go from one gate to the next. That can't be good. To
This
be
is the hardest part when I
Yeah.
see, like you, is we have to be very intentional to what we really need when we travel. And, if you're saying to yourself, well, I may need that, don't pack it, because the may need means you should be buying it if you're on the travel trip. That's how I look at it. But it's also how you pack. And if you're going to be wearing a backpack, like you just noted, then you need to wear it on both shoulders. That's a no-go rule. Is you have to be able to manage the balance of the weight. And when you're packing, it should be the heaviest stuff goes closest to the wheels, because that not only helps you lift it, it also gains momentum when you're rolling it. So I want people to recognize, if you're not rolling it, which is the ideal scenario, then make sure that you're balancing the weight if you're using backpacks. But also, I like to keep it in mind is you need to lift smart, pack light. And those are the two things that really should never be compromised. Is if you're packing light, that means that you're not going to have the potential for further injuries. But if you're also lifting right, you're going to get off the plane and you're going to start feeling better.
I'm doing exactly what you're recommending. As a matter of fact, I take an overnight bag, the same bag that I would take to go overnight, I take to on a trip to India, because and I am sort of bag free. And you know what? There's just basic things that you need to bring. And the world is so homogenized. If you really need something, you can go into a drugstore in almost any place in the world and get what you need if you really need it.
That's right.
Yeah. And I'm kind of reiterating this, I notice people are bringing bigger and bigger bags, and I'm always wondering what are in those bags. Where are um, and also they're heavier. I forget, they're made out of, it seems to me, heavier materials.
Oh, I think there's a variety of materials that one needs to really pay attention to, because I think if you're really going to pack more than you need, then you really have to focus on how heavy the suitcase itself is, because the hard canvas heavy material, well, it's great to protect and you can stretch it out because you start shoving all your souvenirs back and your luggage becomes a kettlebell halfway through your vacation. I think those lighter weight bags that you can get that really have the flexible plastic is really an ideal, because you start light and hopefully you start to recognize that you don't really need that. So put it away. And when you start packing, think about, am I going to save room around the outside for souvenirs? Because so many of us start at the beginning of our trip, it's already full and you're not giving any room to yourself to bring home some things that might be sentimental for your family or friends. And you just need to start light and really focus on what are you going to do when you get there to ensure that you're not going to be putting heavy, heavy weights in it. Otherwise, check those bags. Like, that's a really big piece to, I think, a lot of people's lives, is if you checked your bag, life could be a lot simpler and you're not slugging it through and doing the carry-on thing and then the under the seat thing. And I think that's a better way. If you're really going to go on a trip and you really want to buy some stuff, then bring your checked bag as one of the pieces to enjoy, not having to lift, bend, twist, push, and pull all the way through the airport.
Another thing you can do is if you have clothes, or I guess even shoes, wear one pair of shoes and only bring one pair of shoes, whatever that is, because those
Yes.
are heavy. And also take things with you that you are almost ready to discard and just leave them there. That's what I do. Like, you might have a shirt or a pants or whatever, it's on its last leg, literally just take it on that trip and then leave it. And then that's another way of discarding all this extra stuff that you're talking about.
Yes, absolutely. And I think as we get moving through the packing world and becoming true gurus, I'm going to share with you something that I see a lot of times when traveling, that I think really does create more problems for you. And it's something really simple. When you go into the bathroom with your suitcase and you come out and you wash your hands, don't forget to wipe the top of your suitcase handle. And it seems so innocent, but you just held the railing of the escalator. You've just opened lots of doors, and then you just wash your hands and put your hand back on that same place. So I'm giving you one of my favorite tips is, once you get your hands washed, take that paper towel that just dried and just wipe down your travel handle of whatever you're pulling with you, because I think that's a good travel hygiene thing that many people don't think about. But I think it's an important part of just keeping yourself healthy. Keep your hands clean, your travel luggage handles clean, and that starts a better vacation, because no one wants to get sick when they're on vacation.
That is true. So, any other, have we covered all the basics? Because this is, because we are going to this is the beginning of this big holiday. So, I think these are really good strategies. Have we missed anything?
Two things that I want you to reflect on. Number one, your hydration. It means a lot to your body. And when you're in the airplane, it's very easy for our bodies to not want to drink because we don't want to get up, but don't do that to yourself. Make sure that you're drinking throughout the airplane ride. You don't have to drink a lot at the beginning, but just if you have an 8-ounce bottled water, make sure you get through it. And then when you're on the airplane, instead of asking for a sugary drink, ask for water or sparkling water. That's a really good trick. And then the last one, bring with you a sleep mask. And the reason why is, when you can get into total darkness, especially for those that are going to be traveling on a red eye, you don't want any light to shine through. You want the best, deepest sleep you can get while you're on the airplane, so you're refreshed when you land if it's a red eye. And so those two things can make a difference too, because our sleep matters. And when we're on vacation, we want to be able to fully relax and enjoy. And sleep is one of those things that's non-negotiable. It is so important for our health and our welfare and our mental state. So bring a sleep mask, bring a water bottle, and you should be moving in your seat. And I think you've got it covered.
Well, I think the water bottle thing, and I think today, because there are so many delays, unexpected. You can sit on the runway for an hour or two. Always, I mean, I think that it's so important. I never get on a train or a plane without bringing a water bottle. I mean, I think you're absolutely, that's critical because you never know when things are going to be delayed and you won't have access to water.
Absolutely. And if you want, and I encourage people, if they're going to be taking a long flight, at many running stores, you can get some electrolytes to just throw into your water bottle, and that kind of helps too to ensure that you're getting all of the hydration and electrolytes that you'll need to start your vacation. So, low calories. I'm not saying go get yourself a big Gatorade before you get on an airplane, but it might not be a bad idea just they come in tablets and you can half one and it will fizz when you throw it in your water bottle and you just get a little bit of extra electrolytes. There's nothing wrong with that to start your vacation off right. I think the more we can do to set ourselves up for a fabulous vacation or the travel that we know we're going to be sustaining, the better off we're going to be when we get there.
We have 2 minutes left and these great suggestions. I want everybody to be able to access more information from you about what we've been talking about today and also about your book, Adjusted Reality. So what platforms can we go to for more info?
Beautiful. You can find a doctor of chiropractic by going to f4cp.org/find a doctor. And if you want more information about chiropractic, you can go to f4ce.org. Last, Adjusted Reality. If you want to go on vacation, you really want to relax and think about your health and how to optimize it, I would get a copy of Adjusted Reality. It's sold at Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, Target, and Walmart. And we've hit some very important milestones. We just won the International Book Award. So I think people are starting to catch on, enjoy the read, and find themselves advocating for themselves about what does it mean to optimize my own health, because it's personal, it's important, and you're the greatest investment that you can have is your health.
Well, congratulations on the book, and thank you so much for sharing all this information on the show today. And I've been talking to Dr. Sherry McAllister, and she is the author of Adjusted Reality. And yeah, go to her website. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I'm Kathryn Zox, your social worker with a microphone, and you've been listening to The Kathryn Zox Show.